heated conversation just now, but welcome back to Sun Up on 7. Just before the break, Renata and I had our very interesting and dynamic couch talk, but now we're getting into one of the conversations that we need to be having, and from who better than principals and teachers of schools, talking about the reopening, talking about COVID, children, and how they're dealing with COVID-19 and possible breakouts. So joined with us here in studio today is Ms. Sahar Vasquez, who's a teacher at Hummingbird Elementary. We are also joined via Zoom by Ms. Pamela Baird, principal of Wesley Lower Primary School, and Ms. Deborah Domingo, who is the principal of Maud Williams High School. And we're all here talking about this very, very needed topic. So good morning to everybody, and welcome to Sun Up on 7.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Good morning, and I am the vice principal, not the principal.
Sorry, Ms. Baird, vice principal, corrected. Thank you. So how is everybody doing this morning?
Good, good.
Yeah?
Chilly morning.
Very well. Excited.
Great. That's how we like it at Sun Up.
Looking forward to healthy 2022.
Yes. Oh no, excited for school for start?
Yes, very excited. Counting down the days.
Yes, I am.
So I know a lot of parents have been having, their hysteria, all these things, because I've actually spoken to many young parents, older parents, both of them having some of the same concerns about sending these children back. Omicron is on the prowl, and just wondering, are my children safe? So I guess I'm going to start first off with you, Sahar, and then I'm going to go into Miss Deborah and Miss Baird. When it comes to children going back to school, when a child would contract COVID, what is the first thing that you guys will do if that happens in that scene? So if my child decided to go to this classroom and for some unlucky reason, Brandon picked me, that they want to catch COVID and bring it down, how can I be assured that everything is going to be working out properly? What is the steps that are going to be taken?
Well, I mean, if the child gets COVID, obviously the first thing we would have to do is all the students that were in that class. So I teach infant 2. So if one of my students got COVID, then nobody can come into infant 2. All my students would be sent home, and the class would be sanitized, and everybody would have to be tested to see who has it and who doesn't. And depending on that, we wait and we see, and if we have a number of kids that have COVID, we do classes online until we're able to stabilize and get back into the classroom. But just because Infant 2 had a student with COVID, that doesn't mean that the whole school needs to shut down.
Okay.
Because it's only that class, and we're very strict in the sense that no student goes into any other class, no teacher will go into any other class. You stay in your class. I mean, yes, you might walk past their door and you can say hi, but it's not, you can't be having a charlar there. As much as we miss doing that, and it's nice at the end of the day to go into another teacher's class and chat, we have to be very strict so that in the case of an outbreak, we can just have that class isolated. And so everybody doesn't have to come out of school, right? So that would be that's what we would do if there was a child that had COVID in our scenario. So
Okay, I'd like to direct this question to Ms. Baird, the vice principal of Wesley Lower Primary School. So we have the Omicron, well, there's a rapid development of new cases coming out. And now schools are reopening. We just heard from Ms. Vasquez here as to what may occur during let's say a student has tested positive. Now, in terms of, we're branching off from Ms. Vasquez's answer, you have a person who is infected from a certain class, but we all know that children socialize. They go from places to places, they socialize with other classmates or other standards or places like that. How would you determine exactly the spread of that contagion within your school?
Well, good morning again. As what Ms. Vasquez said, we have a stringent plan at Wesley Lower School. It's similar to what she said there. And we have learned from being open in third term last year. So we have learned a lot from being open in that one term. And so we have stricter regulations in terms of the children mingling with others. They will not be able to do that. we will be having staggered breaks, and these breaks will be happening in the classroom. The only time the child will be allowed outside is for him or her to use the bathroom, and that will also be under heavy supervision as well. You all know that last year we did have a couple of the students at Wesley that contracted the virus, but it was not from within the school. It came to the school, from parents at their various job sites. And so we were able to contain it because it was just as what Ms. Sahar said. Only that class, we got them isolated. They all went for testing. The teachers from those individual classes also went for testing, and we ended up closing for a couple of days. But as I stated before, we have learned from our mistakes, and so we now know that we don't have to close school when it's only children from one individual class that has been affected.
Okay, great.
I want to ask now, Ms. Deborah, in regards to children and the interaction, I know we've been saying now that children are just going to go to the bathroom, they're going to stay in the class and so forth, but a lot of parents have been saying, I'm not understanding how one teacher with maybe, I'm not sure how much is allowed in the class, is going to be able to monitor all these children, making sure that this one, only they go to the bathroom, not they go touch up other kind of things, because children, they just need a little bit of space for them to run about and be rampant. Sahar, I'm sure you know because you're the infant too, so they get around. So in that regards, how are you guys looking towards monitoring when a child is going to the bathroom or interacting or moving from the space that they are?
You know that our experience would be a little different at the high school level.
Yes.
Right. So I would imagine that at the pre-primary and primary schools, that you would have more hands on deck. And there are extra responsibilities for teachers. So at the high school level, we have invited parents to be a part of our monitoring system. And so we expect to have those parents who have committed to come in and to provide some assistance. Our heads of department have made a very strong presence on campus to ensure that students are moving to where they're supposed to go, that they are not congregating, because at the end of the day, we are social beings.
Yes.
And it is very difficult. I cannot imagine how challenging it is for these two administrators at the lower level, because it is a challenge even for us at the high school level to have students remember and recall that they need to adhere to the health protocols to remain safe. So we have to be extra vigilant. We have somebody who attends just to the bathroom, and so she monitors, when the students visit, etc. And they should only be barely going to the bathroom with the teacher's attendant and permission. There's a little slip that indicates, when they're supposed to leave, and so you can kind of track them. It is not easy. There's a lot of burnout, I know. Our teachers get exhausted after a while after doing it. And so I really say hats off to the administrators, to the teachers, particularly at the primary and the pre-primary levels, because these are children who want to be in a relationship, want to interact. They like to hug. Why teacher not they hug me? Why can't I play with this other person? Especially if you've put the structures in place and you've created the bubbles that would allow you to track who a student would have interacted with during the course of a day, where they were sitting, who were the students sitting around them for contact tracing purposes, etc. Not an easy task.
I could imagine, and like we've seen at the KHMH where Ms. Nisbet is actually implementing the fact that for lunchtime, you're not supposed to socialize, you're not supposed to do that. So during lunchtime at these schools, or probably not infant too, probably the primary, or is that?
No, I mean, I think what I want to say is yes, it's difficult, but I've noticed my students, they're very resilient and they are good at following the protocols. They want to follow it because they want to be in the classroom. So they stay in their seats and then everybody has their own individual square. So you have your space. So when we do brain breaks, they can do it in their square. I mean, we can't hug, and that's the hardest thing because, sometimes you just want to give them a hug. So we do ear hugs, or we put our hand on our heart to show that, I love you, I'm showing my affection for you. So it's really just finding ways to adopt. But I will stress, yes, it is exhausting. And it's not the kids that are exhausting, it's because we have to do so much more. I have to be online, I have to be in person, I have to make sure everything is sanitized, it's clean. So you're doubling up. But these kids have shown so much resilience. They have amazed me with their ability at 5 and 6 to keep on. They keep on their mask all day. The only time they take it off is when they have to eat, and that's because some of them just pull it down, eat, and then pull it back up.
Wow.
So they're very serious about it.
Wow.
At break, we have a very structured break where we're basically just playing games that I guess are safe, that nobody's touching anybody, and we have our space. And they want to run around, but they realize that okay, we're in a sensitive time. We just have to do what we can. So I will say, these kids, they're the real MVPs of this year. So yeah.
Okay. And Ms. Deborah, how is it in terms of high school students and during lunchtime or breaks?
At Mud Williams, we have staggered breaks. So while we have maybe first and second form given permission to leave the classroom, go to the bathroom, return, while third and fourth would line up at the cafeteria to purchase their snacks and so on. And then there is a switch. It's all supervised by the homeroom teacher. So the break time really only allows students to go to the bathroom, return, or purchase food and return to the classroom.
Oh, okay. All right, so there's still not that level of interaction, sitting at a picnic table and, okay.
That's good. Ms. Beard, I want to ask, because I know for Wesley Lower, you have actually had like you mentioned before, you've had a situation, you've learned from it, you're able to give much more knowledge because you've been there, you've done that. So in regards to the monitoring process, I want to really look and tap into that because I think, again, people have been really wondering when it comes to who comes into the school and how is it documented? Are you getting back to people and so forth? Because a lot of times people are like, do they have their vaccination? Is that something that's happening where you're checking anything along that lines and the monitoring of who is interacting with the children? Because that's very important.
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked that question because I want to call on the Ministry of Education to kindly give Wesley Lower the 2 school wardens that we are short of. Because currently we only have 1 school warden at the school, and she's at the front gate, and then we have 1 at the preschool. So between myself and the principal, we have to be back and forth at the back gate because we have different entrances and exits for the various classes. So we have the infant 1 and the infant 2 students coming in from the front. And when the parents bring them, they are not allowed on the compound. So they need to just drop the students at the gate. The first procedure is for the child to go to the wash and stand, sanitize, wash, and go directly to your classroom. For standard 1, 2, and 3, the entrance is the back gate. And we have designated stairs that each class has to go on. And so these parents are already apprised of all of this. We have sent all the schedules to them. We have sent the timetables to them. And at Wesley Lower, we are doing the shift system. So we have morning and afternoon shifts. And so we are only accommodating 50% of the population at any given time. So if a class has 24 students, then in the morning, the teacher will be seeing 12, and in the afternoon, she'll be seeing the other 12. And so that makes it a little bit better in terms of monitoring because it's a smaller amount. And so they'll be able to have a better grip on who is going to the bathroom and instead of looking at 24, only having to look at 12. So again, we're calling on the Ministry of Education. This is something that we have written to them about. They're aware of it. We really need these school wardens because as administrators, myself and the principal, we cannot do our jobs if we have to be doing the school warden's job as well.
Right. Thank you for that information, Ms. Baird. But so we heard from you, Sahar, that your students are the real MVPs here. There's something that came up the other day in our discussion with the CEO of the Ministry of Education and Ms. Elena Smith. In terms of parents and their cooperation, how have the parents been in this whole regard in cooperating with all the protocols that their children have to follow?
I mean, they do cooperate. They follow it. We have the same rule as well. We don't have parents in the compound. You just drop off your child, and then they know the procedure. In the class, wash your hands. So they have been following that. I think what's the hardest thing is that they have a lot of fear, and fear can drive us to do things that may be irrational, right? Like not sending your child to school for a very prolonged period of time and just having them doing it online. Doing it online, it puts the child at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can tell that parent. And I'm not a parent, so I cannot imagine how scary it is to have to trust other people to, take care of your child. You have to hope that, okay, they're keeping on their mask and etc. So, but I empathize with them. But I think my plea to them at this point would be, online doesn't work. We are not online schools. We are made to be in person, right? And so the rest of the world is going ahead. They're reopening schools. That's the priority, should be schools. And, we've been closed for, I don't even know how long now, 2 years. So the mental health effects on these kids, it's insane, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety in parts of the world. We're seeing suicide rates going up in younger kids. So being in school is important, not just for learning, but for that social and emotional aspect of it. And again, I know it's scary, but I can say at Hummingbird, we are doing everything in our power to ensure that safety is at the forefront, that our students are well taken care of. We have protocols. We send all of that to the parents so they know. We invite them to even come into the classroom at the end of the day if they want to see how things work, so they can feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But I really encourage parents to send, your kids to school. I know it's hard, but at the end of the day, COVID is not going anywhere. Once this variant goes, then maybe another one will come, So we have to learn to live with it. And maybe, yes, some kids may get it and we'll have our outbreaks, but, we deal with it, we move forward, and, we keep going, because this is the world that we live in now. There's not much we can do. I mean, we can get our vaccines and keep our masks on, social distance, but we have to learn to live with it.
Just to continue on, as you mentioned something about the idea of, living with it and the spread and so forth, I want to talk to Ms. Deborah in regards, you have older children now. You have the high school students. And looking at the idea that, we've mentioned it before in the couch talk, that this is a flu season. People get the sniffles, people get, these little things. So what have you guys been, or what do you have put in place when it comes to a child having the minor sniffles or anything that comes with sometimes the early morning, how to cold front and you get sickish or whatever? Is it a way where they have to stay home if that happens, or what is the process behind that?
So we have been very, very consistent in communicating with parents that if a child is ill, any sign of illness, that child should not be coming to school. And even during the period when we were remote and the students were coming to pick up learning packages and so on, we kept on emphasizing that particular point has to be upheld, so that during this time, when we have more face-to-face or in-person instruction, that's a given. They know that that is not something that should be condoned. It is not really for schools or any school personnel to try to determine what's the reason for a symptom being presented. And that's just being as cautious as possible.
Right.
And with the changes now to the symptoms for this new variant, it is even more so. It is really not for us to say, okay, that sounds like the flu.
Yeah.
We just don't know. And so we continue to encourage parents, if a child is ill, it is best to keep him or keep her at home for the general good of everybody else.
That's very important.
And just to continue with that, Miss Deborah, in terms of that, let's say my child is sick and I keep him or her from going to school, and I'm not sure how the whole hybrid system is working when it comes to that, but will there be, how does a parent go ahead, inform the school, yes, my child is sick, where can he or she go for the online aspect of it? I know you said that there is, one of you said that there is 12 students in the morning, the other 12 in the afternoon. How does that happen there when it comes to online learning?
Any one of us?
It could be anyone, yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Deb.
Yes, I was about to say most of our students are not online. They're actually working with hard copies, learning packages.
Okay.
And so that would be made available to them. But I know that one of the things we have to do, even as we increase the amount of time that the students will have with their teacher during the course of the school year, is to be sensitive to students' needs and even some of the fears of parents, particularly now. And so we have to move towards perhaps having the teacher in the classroom with Google Meet going on live at the same time and recording, so that is placed in Google Classroom for later access. So that's one of the things we are moving towards.
Ms. Baird, I want to ask for, and Sahar, you can also answer, but I know you mentioned that the parents have been cooperative, because I've actually heard this rumor from multiple people that they're not going to send their children to school at all. They're just going to say that they have the flu-like symptoms and they don't have to make their child come because of the fear of not wanting the child come. And like I said, this is from multiple different people, not in the exact same words, but along the similar lines. Is there anything in your system for, the smaller children to know and monitor that indeed, in fact, they do have some flu-like symptoms, that's why they have to stay home? Because we do understand that people will use excuses to not send their children to school. So I don't know, Ms. Baird, if you have anything for that, and then I'll...
Okay, for us at Wesley Lower, we initially did a survey with the parents, and we had 80-something% of our parents saying yes, that they will be sending their students to school. However, that was before we got Omicron. So right now, we are not sure what is going to happen in terms of the minds of the parents and what they're going to do. But for myself, as a parent of a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, I am prepared to send them to school, because they're at a disadvantage, as what Mr. Harris said, at home. It's not the same. It's just not the same for them at home, And I think that all the schools, whether it be private or public, we are really, really trying our best to put safety first for the children. I have seen steps being put in place by each and every school to secure these children as much as possible. But then again, we must bear in mind that as parents, we have to work. And so when we go out, we are mingled with other people and things can happen. And as what was mentioned before in our discussion, I think we just need to learn to live with it, because it's not going anywhere in a hurry. So I just want to reassure the parents of Western Lower School and all the parents in Belize to just, be mindful of the situation. I know at the end of the day, it is your choice. But I want you guys to just have a little bit of faith in our schools because we are trying and we put a lot of planning behind what we have come up with to ensure safety for all the students of Belize.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's really
And
important.
that's a good plug. But I wanted to mention that we had made plans for a wider access to in-person instruction, and those plans are being revisited as we speak. It is not that we are not mindful that students learn best in person. They do, and our students absolutely need it. And so at Maud Williams, what we're doing, we're trying to, one, determine where we are now. Things change so rapidly.
Yeah.
So we are trying to find out who were the students who were ill during the 3 weeks. We didn't have them. Who are the students who are in households now where you have a member of the household waiting for a COVID-19 test result, or who maybe, in isolation? Who are the students who have, since we last met, received vaccination? So we're trying to understand where we are at this point. We're also looking at ways we can reduce the group size as a school together. So we're revisiting that. We're looking at ways to reduce the time that they have on campus more efficiently. We are also looking at what cleaning and sanitizing protocols do we need to beef up. And so we've added to those for our reopening. And we're also introducing a health and monitoring app for our students and teachers in the absence of plans to do random testing in schools. We have to look for a way to select students and ask them, some protocol questions, record that, so we can use that as our monitoring tool, and we can also use it if there is an instance of COVID-19 in our school. We can do the tracking and the necessary reporting. It helps with data gathering. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We believe that there are valuable lessons to learn from what's happening around us. I know, for instance, Barbados, they are delaying the reopening until January 24th, just in an effort to see what needs to change in their schools.
Yeah.
And I heard the interview with Dr. Dr. Diaz yesterday, and there is a very strong indication that the Ministry of Education continues to collaborate with the Ministry of Health, and that there may be some revisiting at some point of the reopening in particular areas. I think that was what was mentioned. And so I think it is only reasonable that, given the surge in cases, that schools look at what adjustments may be needed for your protocols, and if there were plans to increase the amount of in-person interaction on the campus, how those can be managed in a tighter structure, so that we can minimize the risk, and then you gradually relax and open up as the surge subsides. So that is what we're working on right now.
There is definitely a lot to take into consideration. Of course, we're starting off this way. It's not full on for some of the parents that are wondering, and make sure you just have that conversation with your teachers, with your principals, with your vice principals, to know, like Sahar was saying, you can some teachers will allow you to walk into their classroom so that you see where the place where your child is going to go. If you need to have that conversation, you need to go in there practically to see, do that, ask the questions. But like Ms. Baird said, we need to have faith in our education system and in our teachers and go back to some normalcy. COVID is here to stay, and we want to make sure the children can get back into the classrooms to get the education, the quality of education that they so deserve. And let's not hold back on that. And so I want to thank all you ladies for being here, for giving us the update, because you really answered some questions that I'm sure some parents were like, I really do wonder these things. And I feel like there's a sense of calmness, more safety, and understanding of the present situation that's going to be taking place in the classrooms to come. And so with that, we go to our next commercial break. When we're back, we're going to be talking about the gang intervention and the plans for 2022 with Mr. William Dawson and Dr. Rosado. Stay tuned for that conversation.